Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1251, 1251, September 26th, 2020, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well we are now learning and have confirmed that just as I suspected, it was U.S. Attorney from Missouri, Jeff Jensen, who turned up the 40 pages of texts from the FBI that was turned over to Sidney Powell and is responsible for making these latest revelations. I'll tell you, man, this guy Jeff Jensen, if it were me right now, I think that I would. I don't know where I'd put him. I'd like to bump no shit Sherlock Wray and just go ahead and make Jeff Jensen the FBI director now. Although as good as Jensen is doing, you know, I'd rather maybe bump Durham and maybe put Jensen at the head of the investigation. Better yet, maybe get rid of Barr and make Jensen the Attorney General. let's put Jeff Jensen somewhere where this guy can start calling the shots, because he's the guy that's getting results. He's a hell of a good man. I wouldn't want him investigating me. He looks kind of mean. And he produces, man. This guy flat out produces. But now we know that there's a lot more. We now have the backstory, and you can read all about it in the Federalist. But if you don't have time to do that or whatever, I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the article in the Federalist, which lays out exactly how Jensen came about acquiring these 40 pages of text and what all he has learned. And there's a lot more than what we learned yesterday. And we're going to talk about that today, as well as an update from Paul Sperry that I think is very interesting. By the way, another thing that's kind of been cleared up is that this look into the Clinton Foundation by Durham, supposedly, is a criminal investigation into the Clinton Foundation. And apparently, he took it over from Huber. Huber wasn't getting it done. So Durham said, here, I'm taking over your investigation. Thanks very much. So, you know, the clock is ticking, and the closer we get to October, you know, the more time is running out here. And, you know, it's my thoughts that if Barr and Durham are going to do anything, that they'd be better off to do it before the month of October. Because anything that happens in the month of October just gets written off as, you know, October surprise, election year politics, and it sort of loses its credibility. So I was kind of hoping, and I guess there's still a couple days left for Barr and Durham to do something before October gets here. And I do hope they do that, but we're running out of days. And they need to act, quite honestly. They really do. Let's go ahead and get back now to what is going on in the backstory regarding the 40 pages that were given to Sidney Powell from Jeff Jensen. So as it turns out, Jeff Jensen got this information from an interview that he did with the FBI case agent, William Barnett. He was the case agent in the Michael Flynn investigation. He also would later move over to the Mueller team. So he was both the case agent for the Michael Flynn investigation, and he was then moved over to the Mueller team. And he's got a lot to say about both. And he said it to Jeff Jensen. And now, Jensen's got it. He's also got William Barnett's phone, which William Barnett did not wipe, I guess you would say. So Barnett essentially has blown the whistle on the scam, and he did this in this interview with Jeff Jensen, which was just conducted just this past 7-8 days ago, September 17th. So he just got this information. Let's go over some of the things that Barnett told Jensen. Barnett told Jensen that the handling of the two investigations troubled him so much that he threatened to quit one and go to the Inspector General on the other. Barnett told Jensen that there was never any basis for the bizarre collusion theory that the FBI and the Mueller team relentlessly pursued, to the point that agents were making jokes about it. Barnett told Jensen that the special counsel pursued Flynn simply as a means to get Trump, and viewed investigators as a speed bump, slowing down the work of the attorneys leading the Inquisition. After deciding to close the investigation into Flynn, this is Barnett talking talking to Jensen. He says that after he had made the decision to close the investigation into Flynn due to the lack of evidence, Barnett says he was told to keep the investigation open and now to start looking for evidence of FARA violations. Also, that the top brass refused to allow him, Barnett, to question Flynn, which is the normal procedure because he was the case agent. Barnett told Jensen that the two investigations were top-down, which is not the usual procedure. Barnett says that it was Andrew McCabe who was personally directing the Flynn investigation. Barnett also told Jensen that the leaks were coming from high-level officials at the White House, and they were targeted toward Trump and people in his orbit. The FBI leaks. He tells Jensen that the FBI leakers were using the leaks to justify and increase the tempo of the investigation into Flynn and Trump more broadly. Barnett told Jensen that he asked to be removed from the investigation in February of 2017. Barnett also took his concerns to Kevin Kleinsmith, who told him everything they were doing was legal. You're going to like the next one. Barnett told Jeannie Wray that there was no evidence of Michael Flynn committing a crime, and Wray then told Barnett to drill down on fees that Flynn was paid for giving a speech in Russia. Barnett then told Wray that there was no problem with the fees paid to Flynn and that he had thoroughly investigated it. At which point Wray told Barnett that she was looking forward to working together with him, at which point Barnett told Wray that they would not be working together. Barnett told Jensen that Wray was obsessed with Michael Flynn and Russia and that she clearly had an agenda. Barnett told Jensen that there was a get Trump attitude by officials running the Mueller probe. Barnett also told Jensen that the special counsel members regularly wiped their phones and electronic devices to prevent examinations of their communications, and that they often made jokes about wiping their phones. Barnett has never wiped his phone, which he has now turned over to Jeff Jensen. Now, as a result of these 40 pages and containing this information, Sidney Powell, of course, went to court the very next day, and they had scheduled a very, very quick hearing. That hearing is going to be Tuesday, the same day as the first presidential debate, assuming that Biden shows up, and I'm not so sure he's going to show up. I'll believe it when I see it. So I guess the first thing that crosses my mind with all this, well, there's a few things that cross my mind. Number one is that Jeff Jensen kicks ass. Number two that crosses my mind. Why did Mr. Barnett and some of these other agents that he refers to, why did they not come forward as whistleblowers a long time ago? I can take a guess. My guess is that they probably feared that if if they came forward, that they too would be targeted and destroyed, have their careers ruined. Or that it could be turned on them to make it look like they were the bad guys. Remember, we're talking about some very devious people here in the deep state, and no one would know that better than these guys. Now, there's been two people who have worked with Barnett who have come out now to give their opinion of what their thoughts are on Mr. Barnett. And both of them say that he's very solid, not political, very professional, and likes to keep to himself, doesn't like to draw a lot of attention, just likes to put his head down and do his job. And there's a lot more than what I just gave you, and there's more even than what's in the Federalist. These are just like the talking points. This was a fairly lengthy interview, or possibly two interviews, with Jensen and Barnett. So we can assume that there's more that we don't even know. It also suggests to me that Kevin Kleinsmith is cooperating, and that's probably how they found out about Barnett. So, had Barnett and some of these other FBI agents that he describes, had they come out 3 years ago, back in 2017, and blown the whistle, things would be a lot different right now. And I'm very disappointed that they chose not to. They chose not to come out and blow the whistle. They certainly should have. I can certainly appreciate that they understand the power that, you know, resides with the deep state, specifically the top tier of the FBI, the DOJ, and that they probably could destroy you. But a lot of whistleblowers know that when they come forward. It appears that from what Barnett is describing is almost like what you see in organized crime, the old mob families, the way they used to do things, where they would bring innocent people in, decent people in, because they needed them to be able to show their face and say, hey, here's a good guy, here's a straight shooter, here's a straight up guy. They would bring these people in to their criminal activities and get these people entangled in and get them drawn in and sucked in. And then once they were in, and by the time they realized that they were involved in a criminal activities, now they were compromised. And that's how the mob used to control people, was they would be able to lure people in, and by the time these people realized that what they were doing, what they have been doing, was criminal, there was no way out for them. So this is kind of how it looks like what the Mueller team and what the DOJ and the FBI was doing to some of these other agents, including Mr. Barnett, who again was the lead case agent on the Michael Flynn case and also was pulled over onto the Mueller team. It looks like that's what happened to him, is he was pulled into these things, and that by the time he realized that what was going on, he was now involved. And he would probably have to, if he tried to blow the whistle, he would have to count on other people around him having his back, and that would be very risky because they also would be worried about their careers and being destroyed. And he would have to worry about the people he would blow the whistle on turning on him and making it look like he was the bad guy because he was the case agent. So it's almost, they set him up as the case agent, and then they go off and do all this illegal stuff that keep him on the outside, on the perimeter. He tries to do what he's supposed to do. He should have been one of the two people interviewing Flynn instead of Strzok and Pienka. It should have been Barnett, and he tells Jeff Jensen that. He said, hey, I should have been the guy that was interviewing Flynn, but they wouldn't let me. Refused to let me. Even when I pressed them on it, I said, hey, this interview that you're going to do with Flynn, I should be the guy there. And they said, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to have Pete and Joe do it. You just sit tight. So they kept putting him off because they obviously figured out that he was raising too many questions, asking too many questions that they didn't want being raised. He was trying to go somewhere else with the investigation, which is he was trying to track down any of the potential evidence, prove it to be true or false, and if there was a case, to move forward. If not, close the case. He decided there was no evidence, tried to close the case, and once he did that, that's when he got shut out. Shows you how deep the corruption is. That even their own people on the inside, on their very teams, can be targeted and subjected to the deep state's evil, pure evil, what we're talking about here. So this is very damning. I mean, this is very, very damning. I mean, you want to talk about having a solid witness. Mr. Durham, there's your star witness. And you remember, you've also got this guy, Stu, what's his name, on the DOJ side, and he was doing the same. So here you have the FBI lead case agent. On the FBI side, you had Stu, can't remember his last name, but you had Stewart, can't remember his last name, on the DOJ side, who was also a lawyer, who would have to have signed off on a lot of the things that we're doing on the DOJ side. He too got the same treatment as Barnett got, which is once he started asking questions, they put him on the perimeter. They put him on the outside, and kept frustrating him, and they finally just beat him down. It looks like exactly what they did to this guy Barnett. Barnett also said that he should have been the guy in that January 5th meeting where the plotting was going on to determine how to take out Flynn. But of course, and he made that perfectly clear that, hey, you know, I should be in that meeting. This is my case. Instead, they sent Peter's been stroking us. That January 5th meeting. So Barnett realizes at some point, once he gets into this thing, at some point, he realizes what's going on. And as he tries to curtail it, he realizes that he's just being, you know, sidelined. Because they figure out at this point, okay, he's not on the team. So he asked to be taken off the investigation, February 2017. The things that he observed while he was on the Mueller team compelled him to want to go to the Inspector General. So they put him on the sidelines there as well. So, again, I mean, Mr. Barnett is your star witness right there. I mean, he talk about whistleblowers. He's the star witness. He was the lead case agent in the Michael Flynn case. He was moved over then to the Mueller team. He's got inside skinny on all of it. He would be your star witness. And something tells me that Jensen was put onto Barnett probably from things they learned from Kleinsmith. Unbelievable. I mean, people use the phrase smoking gun. There is no more smoking gun than this. The FBI case agent on the Flynn case saying, yeah, it was all corrupt. They were out to get him. Trump was the target, but they had to take out Flynn first. I mean, that's what he's saying. Oh, yeah, they were wiping their phones and laughing about it all the time. And their other electronic devices. Jenny Rhee, one of the top DOJ lawyers on the Mueller team, basically telling him to go on wild goose chases as he's sitting there telling her there is nothing. I've investigated it. He's clean. It's time to let go. No, go investigate him for FARA now. That's not how things work. And I think she's still with the DOJ. She should be fired tomorrow. They should be SWAT raiding her home to get records and documents. Everyone who wiped their phones based on this testimony should be arrested tomorrow for obstruction of justice and destroying evidence. There's a whole lot of crimes that Mr. Barnett has just relayed to Jeff Jensen. Now, I assume that Jeff Jensen is not the person who's been told by Attorney General Barr that he can go ahead and file charges or indictments against people as he's doing his investigation. I assume that his work is being collected and turned over to Durham. And that's unfortunate, because if Jeff Jensen were running his own parallel investigation and he had the ability to bring indictments, I guarantee you he would have indicted all these people by now. Jeff Jensen would have. But everything seems to be flowed over to the Durham investigation, which so far has produced very little. Now, maybe at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, Durham is going to blow this whole thing up. He better. There's way too much evidence that's now in the public domain. These people need to be indicted soon, as in like yesterday. It's just mind-boggling. I don't know that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of criminal cases, both, on the national scale, international scale, and even here locally, where I live. I've seen a lot of investigations. I don't think I've ever seen an investigation go on so long and reveal so much evidence of crimes and have no one literally indicted other than Kleinsmith. But that was a no-brainer. I mean, he indicted himself with his conversations. And that was actually pointed out by Horowitz, Huckleberry Horowitz, not Durham. I don't exactly understand the political strategy that's being employed here by Attorney General Barr. He's a smart guy. He's been around a long time. He probably knows what he's doing, probably better than I do. I have to assume that he has thought this through and that there's some reason why he is moving at the pace he's moving at and the way that he's handling it the way he is. Now, I suggested a long time ago, about 4 or 5 months ago, right about the time that Jensen was brought on, to look into the Flynn thing. And that's when we really started getting a lot of documents. And then then we get Rick Grinnell, and he starts releasing things. Now, all that has to be approved by Barr. So it was about 4 or 5 months ago that I said that it appears that Barr is preparing the battlefield, that he doesn't just want to come out of the blue and him and Durham and make their case. It's almost like they want to soften everybody up. Almost like they want to start releasing information, more and more and more and more and more information, to where there's so much evidence out in the public domain that when they go to launch the indictments, drop indictments on people, that no one is surprised. That people don't go, oh, they're indicting Comey and Clapper and all these other people? Oh my God, I can't believe it. The response that I think that they want is, damn, what took so long? We've known about all the crimes they committed. The evidence has been dripped out and leaked out now for month after month after month. Hell, anybody, I could go into court and prosecute these people with the evidence that's now in the public domain. And I'm not even a prosecutor. You can sit there and just read from the documents that have been released, from the testimonies that have been released. And here you have what I would consider a star witness. Firsthand, inside witness. As inside as you can get. And he's essentially dropped the entire ball game on Jensen, who's now passed it over to Durham. Unbelievable. Again, I've never seen in my lifetime an investigation where so much evidence is in the public domain while no charges are filed. You know, it doesn't look like what you're used to seeing in an investigation. Normally, with this much evidence in the public domain, we would have seen, you know, SWAT raids, or at least ways search warrants being carried out at these people's homes and businesses and offices. Their devices being confiscated as evidence. But we don't see any of that happening. It's very strange. It's very, very strange. And a little troubling. But anyway, this is just extraordinary information. Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, this is, you know, this is like having a guy who witnesses a murder. It's like having a guy say, yeah, I was standing 10 feet away when he pulled out his gun and shot the guy. I was standing right there. Saw everything. I even recorded it. Here's the video. Well, thank you very much. We'll put that in the evidence file. Appreciate it. I don't know what to think at this point. Absolutely stunning. So, now that all this evidence is now with the court, Tuesday is going to be a very interesting day because that court hearing, the Flynn hearing, and they got that hearing damn quick. Remember, Sidney Powell just got this information. She was in court the next day with it. And they got it. In fact, they got the hearing set so fast that there's not even a docket number for it. No docket number for this hearing. It's been scheduled, but there's no docket number. Normally, at the time when they schedule a hearing, it must go through this process where you get a docket number. There is no docket number on this hearing. They just scheduled the hearing for ASAP, which will be Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock. If, in light of all of this information, the judge does not drop this case, then we have to assume that there's something else going on with Sullivan. He has to be being extorted or blackmailed or something. Because there's no way in the face of this that he would continue this case. And someone needs to look into what's been going on with that. There's something going on with that. There's no way a judge would have taken this far. There's something going on. I don't know what. But man, this thing is deep. It really is. And again, as many people have said, it's every time we get all this information, it's clear that it's much worse than we ever thought. And when I first started doing these TowerGate videos, it was about, you know, did they conduct surveillance on Trump? That was pretty much what started me doing these videos. Trump saying he had been spied on. Now, 3.5 years later, could never have imagined. And quite honestly, I bet there's a lot more that we don't know. It's going to get even worse. And there's a lot of things also going on in Italy. The guy who introduced Papadopoulos to Mifsud, he was just arrested yesterday. And there's about 40 other individuals who are being targeted. This is all breaking right now in Italy. A lot of things happening. A lot of things happening. Now, we have Paul Sperry tweeting out yesterday, quote, "The FBI knew through classified channels that the Kremlin had explosive compromat on the rotten Reverend Clinton in 2016, dirt that would have wrecked her campaign, yet Russia chose not to release it. The FBI possesses anti-Hillary material." Excuse me. The FBI possesses anti-Hillary material, but is keeping it classified. The FBI knew Russia could blackmail Clinton, but they have kept it quiet. Boy, that gets your mind spinning, doesn't it? The FBI knew through classified channels that Russia had explosive compromat on Hillary in 2016. The FBI knew from classified information that they have, that they're holding right now and keeping classified, that Russia had explosive compromising material on Hillary in 2016. It sounds like from that they must have believed that the Russians were going to drop some damaging information on Hillary. And so to counter that, they decided to tie Trump to it, to frame him into it, so that if that did happen, they could say Trump working with the Russians in a political dirty trick to take out Hillary. It's all bullshit. None of it's true, and Trump is colluding with the Russians to take out Hillary. But the Russians never dropped the dirt. And that would explain why they would have Mifsud go tell Papadopoulos that very thing. Because they actually knew that the Russians did have compromising material on Hillary. And how did they get it? They hacked her freaking server, that's why. They probably knew that Hillary's server was hacked by the Russians and everyone else, and that they had dirt on Hillary. But just as I said many years ago, a long time ago, that if the Russians did have dirt on Hillary, they wouldn't drop it unless she was president. Only then, or even if it was Trump, if they had dirt on Trump, they'd wait till you're president, then they could use it to gain some leverage over negotiations about various things. They wouldn't go public with it. Once you go public with it, it's not worth anything. Yeah, it gets that person embarrassed, maybe gets them into some trouble, but it does you no good. You can't use it anymore. So, of course, the Russians would never go public with it. That's not how they would use it. They would use it privately through back channels, sending messages, hey, we got this on you, and we could go public with it, but we'd rather just negotiate. You know, that, pipeline that we're trying to build that you're blocking, we'd like you to stop blocking that. That type of thing. And Paul Sperry says that the FBI possesses this anti-Hillary material right now. And they're keeping it classified. Huh. That's some deep information there. If Paul Sperry knows about it, then a lot of people must know about it. Did Rick Grinnell know about it? Does John Ratcliffe know? Because if I'm John Ratcliffe and I'm reading this, I'm going, holy shit. You mean somewhere the FBI possesses anti-Hillary material that the Russians had, and they've had since 2016 or earlier, probably from her hacked or from her server? I want that information. Where is it? I'm the DNI, and I want to see it. I don't know what Sperry's sources are on this, but if this is true, this would explain a lot of things, wouldn't it? It would explain Mifsud. It would explain the whole damn thing. We need to see that classified information if it does exist. And if it does, oh my God. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back. See ya. Bye.